Welcome back everyone to another Weather at a Glance video. In today's forecast, we are going over our first preliminary fall forecast for the fall season of 2023, all coming up in just a bit. All right, on our first slide, we're taking a look at our official NOAA CPC ENSO probability issued June of 2023. And here you can see this is the forecast issued by NOAA to show you where and what kind of pattern we are going to be expecting. Now, so far, you can see we have had above average sea surface temperature anomalies in the Nino 3.4 region, and that is leading us into an El Nino phase, as you can see here. So right now, we are past the May, June, July era. We are going into June, July, and August. And you can see for the projected future, we are expected to stay in El Nino territory. Now, this continues through August, September, and October, through all the way through to December, January, February, and all the way ahead to January, February, and March. So you can see for the very foreseeable future, we're going to be expecting El Nino conditions according to the CPC ENSO probability forecast. Now, moving on to our second slide, we are looking at our precipitation anomaly forecast map. And starting off, we're going to go ahead and go up here to the slightly below average region up here in the Great Lakes. Now, this being a small portion of the map, you can see this isn't a very widespread area, but this is expected due to the way the jet stream is expected to continue. We are expecting storms to trek down through the northern Rockies and down here through the southeast and up through the Atlantic with a persistent trough around this area. Of course, the ridge will be coming into play for Texas, but we are looking at less stormy conditions for the Great Lakes around this time of year. Now, this doesn't mean you won't see any storm systems. Again, the Great Lakes do get kind of battered around the time of October and especially in the November, but we are expecting slightly below, so not really noticeable precipitation changes, but a little bit below average. Now down here to the southwest and over to the west coast, we are expecting slightly below average conditions. And yes, I do know what you are thinking. How does this play into our monsoon season? Because we see the highest time for precipitation for the southwest is around this time of year in the monsoon season. So again, this isn't really going to put too much of a damper on monsoon season, but I do believe that we are going to head into slightly drier conditions this monsoon season due to the El Nino pattern. Again, typically we would see a pretty active monsoon season with the subtropical jet stream shoving all that moisture off of the west coast, but I do believe that we are going to see a little bit of a damper on that due to the way that the jet stream is setting up. Again, we see kind of a weaker subtropical jet stream and more of an elevated subtropical jet stream at that, but we also see the polar jet stream kind of staying farther up north and just overall staying out of this area, keeping the moisture further southwest and not heading up here into the southwestern portion of the United States. Now, yes, of course, the most shocking part is heading to this below average region. And you can see for the Pacific Northwest, yes, you heard it, we are expecting below average conditions this fall for precipitation so far because of the way that we are setting up. Again, that jet stream is going to be elevated not only with the polar jet stream being lifted, but we also see less moisture heading off of the Pacific Northwest coast. So we are expecting less storm systems to hammer the Pacific Northwest than what would usually happen in a La Nina type condition. Now, moving on to our next set of regions, we're going to take a look at the slightly above average precipitation region over here in the Atlantic coastline, all the way up from the mid-Atlantic all the way to the northeast. And you can see, again, when we talk about slightly, not a lot of change, you're not really going to notice anything changing. So it's not going to be rainy every single day during the fall, but I do believe with the storm track and a lot of that moisture being over here in the mid-Atlantic area, we are going to see that carry up with the jet stream from the Gulf of Mexico. And overall, just a lot of storminess this fall in this area. Now, if we move over here to the Great Plains and up into the Rocky Mountains over here into the west, we do see slightly above average condition. And so far, this has been the current pattern we've been seeing all summer long. And I do believe that's going to continue into the fall. According to the anomalies that we've seen so far and what we have seen historically this time of year. Now, moving on to our final region here on the map, we are looking at above average conditions. And here, this is where you will notice some significant rainfall increase more than likely this fall. I am expecting a lot more rainfall with the storm tracks, and I do believe this is going to be a very rainy area this fall. So again, for those of you who really have been needing that rain for years now, due to the La Nina pattern and the overall drought that's been persisting, this is going to help you out a lot, especially through the summer rain that we've been having and through the projected rest of the summer. We do see a lot of that rainfall coming in. and into the fall as well. Now, onto our second forecast map here, we're going to take a look at our temperature anomaly forecast map. Now, what we're going to start off is down here in the mid-Atlantic once again, and you can see here slightly below average conditions. Now, this is a bit different than what we would normally see. Again, this time of year, we are expecting warm conditions, especially down here where we see 90s up and even into the 100-degree Fahrenheit range for the mid-Atlantic. But again, this is going to be slightly below due to the type of pattern we've been seeing so far. For the past couple of weeks, we have been seeing cooler conditions for the mid-Atlantic the past couple months as well. And I do expect that that's going to continue into the fall, especially the way the jet stream is setting up. We are expecting more persistent troughing to come through here, and I do believe that's going to keep things cooler, along with the heavier precipitation that comes through as well. Now, over here into the slightly below average region in the west, this is also going to be a bit different as well, because we have been seeing those consistent triple-digit numbers peak over here in the temperatures for the western United States. But I do believe that as we move into fall, we will start to cool down for some of these areas. Not so far to the south, but in northern Arizona, we do expect that. And these are just slightly below average conditions, so nothing too cool. Nothing that's really going to put a crazy damper on the temperatures, but I do believe slightly cooler conditions can be expected. Now, keeping ourselves down here to the south, we're going to look at our slightly above average region here. This stretches through Los Angeles, Phoenix, all the way over into the southeastern United States over here. And again, with slightly below average or slightly above average conditions, we don't expect much of a change. So this isn't going to be too crazy of a change. Again, we always know that down here in the south, it's going to be hot. And any time of year is really just nice, warm, and obviously it gets very hot during the summer and the fall. So we are expecting that to kind of linger. And slightly above may put that a little bit worse, but we aren't expecting anything too crazy if you live in this region. Heading up here to the north, we are expecting slightly above average conditions to persist up here as well. We already have seen some of that, not so much around the mid-Atlantic and up into Pennsylvania, but we are expecting a lot of those warmer conditions to stay up here for the far northern areas. Warmer conditions that we haven't seen for the past couple years. Now down here to the south again, we're looking at that above average region, and this is where you will likely notice the heat if you haven't already. This summer has been very hot down here due to a ridge that has been persisting over to the south, and we do expect that to kind of linger into the fall as well, that ridging pattern, and that's going to keep that hot, kind of drier air over the area. So nothing really below average precipitation wise as we saw, but we are expecting a big old heat dome over this area, and that's going to kind of persist into the fall. Now finally over here to the west, we are expecting above average conditions, and this is really different than what we've been seeing the past couple years. Again, this is always kind of a notable region during La Nina where we have cool and wet conditions. Now this year we're going to kind of flip that. It's going to be drier as we saw, and we're also expecting these warmer conditions to go over here. So a lot of people in Seattle like the cool, rainy conditions. That's why they moved there. But this year is going to be kind of a different story, especially into the fall and winter months. All right, now finally on our overall forecast map, we're going to start off here in the Pacific Northwest as per usual. And we are going to see that we have hot conditions, again, like we saw in our temperature anomaly forecast map, just consistent hot temperatures. Even peaking to the triple digits at times. That is very rare, but we can see that at times throughout the late summer and early fall. We can expect that as well, depending on where you live in this region. Obviously, if you live up in higher elevation, that's not really going to be a factor that you can see. But if you live down in the valleys, you will likely see those hotter conditions that could peak up that high. The same type of region is down here for the south, and we are expecting those hot conditions. So nothing really different than what we saw up there in the Pacific Northwest, just very persistent hot temperatures that we are expecting this fall. Now over here into the southwest, we are expecting some of those conditions to be cool and dry. So this is definitely going to be a better region for you guys who don't like a lot of that rain and like cooler conditions. Again, we're not talking about 40 to 50 degree temperatures. We're more or less saying around 60 to 70 this fall. That is kind of a very rough estimate projection of what you could see this fall. Moving over here to the wet region, as you guessed it, this is going to be very wet conditions persisting through the fall that we are expecting as of right now. And obviously this can change, but we are expecting our current storm track to be mainly around this area, anywhere from southeastern Montana all the way through Nebraska down to Kansas. We are expecting a lot of those wet conditions to stay here in a pretty wet fall for this fall season. Keeping ourselves up in the north, we can see that we are expecting warmer conditions overall throughout this fall, and this kind of again bumps up over the mid-Atlantic and heads back down through the northeast, but we are expecting those warmer conditions, so nothing too crazy, not a hot fall, but we are expecting a warmer fall than what we would typically see the past couple years. Now down here in the mid-Atlantic, we are expecting cool and wet conditions, so pretty rainy oftentimes, not as wet as over here in the Great Plains as we see right now, but we are expecting cool and wet conditions. So if you like those cooler and wet conditions, it's definitely a region you're going to want to stay in this fall. And finally, we have our very blunt average region here. So bluntly put, it is going to be very average to what you would typically see in fall. Nothing out of the ordinary. Again, this can change. You could have some slightly warmer conditions at times, slightly cooler conditions at times, rainy, but generally overall, it's going to be fairly average and a fairly normal fall for you guys who live in this region. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. A big thanks to today's sources, NOAA Climate Prediction Center, where that outlook came from at the beginning from the CPC. A big thanks to our channel members as well, Jess Woolwine. And if you would like to be featured up there on the channel membership tab, please do think about joining our membership. Again, all you have to do is click on the channel logo and you will see a blue join button. If you click that, you can sign up for a membership. It really helps us out for what we do here. I would ask you consider subscribing for more US forecasts free of charge, and I would ask you consider following the Weather at a Glance official Facebook page for more inside information and complimentary personal forecasts when you message me on my Facebook page. Again, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.